With me today, I have the largest SUV in Ford's lineup, and that is this 2020 Ford Expedition. Now, the Expedition went through a complete redesign back in 2018, and everything was changed and redesigned from the ground up. And now it's more capable than ever. It could tow more, it could haul more, it has a more powerful engine, it's more fuel efficient, it has a lot more tech, a lot more features, and it's a whole lot more comfortable. So is this the best Expedition, and is it the right large SUV for you? Well, keep watching and find out. A big thanks to PackyWeb Ford for making this video possible. If you're in the market for a brand new or used Ford, definitely check out PackyWeb Ford in Downers Grove. Their URL is on the screen and in the description below. Starting with the outside, the new Expedition has a different yet familiar look. The front end is imposing with its massive center grille and just overall size. The large chrome grille in the middle spreads across the middle and into the great looking headlights. There are also chrome trim pieces down below that surrounds the fog lights, and for some contrast there is some silver cladding on the lower bumper. The lower trims on the Expedition gets halogen headlamps and fog lights, but on this Platinum trim everything is LED. The side of the Expedition is what you expect from a full-size SUV. It is big and brawny, and Ford did a good job dressing it up. On this Platinum trim, you see aluminum mirrors and roof rails, chrome underneath the windows and beneath the doors, and those massive 22-inch wheels look perfect. 22-inch wheels are standard on the Platinum and King Ranch trims, while the XLT and Limited trims gets 18-inch or 20-inch wheels. The power running boards that can be configured to deploy when the doors open are also really cool. The back of the Expedition is very square and boxy, and there's a spoiler on top, a very large privacy glass, and some silver accent piece in the middle, along with silver cladding on the bottom. All trims get power tailgate function, but only the upper trims get the hands-free option. Inside the trunk, even with the third row up, you get plenty of space for cargo. On the right side, you have a tie down and a 12V outlet. On the left side, you have a cubby hole, and this Platinum trim includes switches to power fold the third row and second row seats. Now, the third row seats take a while to fold down, as you see here. However, the second row slams down pretty quickly. The caveat here is the second row cannot fold back up. You'll have to do that manually. The third row comes back up just as slow as they go down. The bottom cover has dual purpose. You can simply open it up to reveal some hidden storage and tools. However, you could open up the other way and fold it into a shelf/privacy cover. It's actually really cool. The door for the second row opens a full 90 degrees, which is great for getting in and out, especially from the third row. All trims come with 3 seats in the second row standard, but you can opt for captain chairs like you see here, and it costs about $600. The Platinum trim is full leather, and these seats have some really nice stitching. All trims get at least 2 USB ports in the second row, but this Platinum trim gets 2 USB ports, a household outlet, climate control, music control, and heated seats. Space in the second row is enormous. I'm 5'10", and with the seats all the way back, I have over a foot of legroom left and 5 to 6 inches of headroom. The seats can slide, and even at the most forward position, I still have about 3 inches of legroom left. The seats can also recline back. This Platinum trim also gets inflatable safety belts for the kids. Now, getting into the third row is easy. There's plenty of space between the 2 captain chairs. However, you could also simply fold the seats forward, and there's plenty of space to crawl into the back. In the third row, as long as the second row isn't all the way to the back, there's a good amount of space for adults, as you see here. For this Platinum trim, on the side, you have some power folding buttons, and 2 cup holders along with a USB port. Now to get out, simply pull on the seat back tab and push the seat forward. That's it. As for engine options, there's only one, but there's 2 levels of power. On the Platinum trim that I'm reviewing today, you get 400 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. This is coming from a 3.5 liter V6 EcoBoost engine with turbocharging. Now all other trims besides the Platinum trim gets 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. In terms of fuel economy, they are all equal. And this engine is mated to a 10-speed automatic. Next, let's look at the front cabin. Alright guys, I'm behind the steering wheel, so let me show you the front cabin and the features you'll find in this brand new Expedition. Now starting with the steering wheel, it's the same one that you'll find in the F-150s, very truck-like, and overall it's very big, it's thick, it's well cushioned, and I like it. It actually fits this cabin really well, just like it fits the F-150s pretty well too. Now in terms of design, a little bit dated, but you'll see that you do have a lot of big buttons for those of you guys that have big hands or wearing gloves, right? Lots of big buttons, easy access. Over here, these buttons are all for volume and scrolling through the different stations. Down here you have voice control and also phone control. Now on this side you have adaptive cruise control, turning that on or off, setting the distance and all that good stuff. And over here, this is to scroll through the 8-inch info screen that is in the gauge cluster. Pretty easy to understand, left, right, up and down, and press OK. Now I'll let you guys know how the steering wheel feels once I start driving. I do like the thickness. It is very thick, but it is well cushioned and this leather feels pretty good. And on the inside you do see some of the stitching, right? So I'll let you guys know how this feels once I start driving. Now moving on to the gauge cluster, tachometer, speedometer, those are analog, very big, but of course the inside, the 8-inch screen, the info screen, that is big as well. It's as big as the info screen, and you get a lot of information. So going through the menus here, you do have My View. That's kind of like your favorites, whatever you want to put in here. Then you have trip and fuel, and there's a lot in here. Trip 1, 2, fuel economy, history, auto start stop. That's where you could turn it on or off. Average speed, compass, navigation. So a lot to look at. Next, vehicle information. So you could see gauge view, tire pressure like TPMS. You can have a digital speedometer, information about your engine, transmission, temperature, seat belts. Yeah, it's a lot of information. Same thing here for towing. Those of you guys that want to tow, this Expedition can tow up to 9,300 pounds, which is class leading, and this will give you more information about that. Also here, this is off-road mode, so you can see the pitch, the tilt, whether or not you're in 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, your steering angle, all that good stuff. Under settings, there's a lot of things you can turn on or off. For example, some of your safety features such as your blind spot monitoring, cross traffic alert, driver alert, pre-collision, your cruise control, gauge selection, lane keeping system. So there's a lot of things that you can go in here and adjust. Now one thing that took me a while to find was the power running boards that's standard on here. It wasn't deploying automatically, so you have to go into settings, and I found it here, power running boards. This is where you could do auto, off, or out. And auto is whenever you open the doors, close the doors, it'll auto deploy and retract. Off is just, it's off forever. Those of you guys that are taller side, you don't need it. You can just put it off. And out is where it just sticks out forever. So there's little things like that you can change in the settings as well. There's a lot of information that Ford gives you in this info screen, and that's really helpful. Now, moving on from there, on the left side, there's a lot of things going on over here. Now, this is to retract the headrest in the back and also power tailgate. Now, down here, you do have the power adjusting pedals where you can move forward and backwards. This is for your brake. Now over here, this is your memory seats. This is window control, mirror controls. Now this is equipped with power folding mirrors. So if you wanted to fold them manually, simply press that button over here and they will fold back or fold out depending on what you're doing. right? This is pretty standard, and in terms of the windows, auto up and down for all 4 windows, which is really nice. And then just take a look at the door panel, just like the back ones. Because this is the Platinum trim, you get a whole lot of leather everywhere. In Limited, you get a lot of leather, but in Platinum, you get even more leather, as you can see. There's just a lot of leather and this kind of like copper stitching everywhere in the cabin, and I'm a big fan. All right, now moving on to the center here, you got really large, really large air vents, right? Straight off the F-150, but overall, I think it fits. Now, in terms of this is an 8-inch Sync 3 info screen. You have some buttons up here, engine auto start stop over here. This is for the camera, the 360 view, as you can see, all around you and what's behind you. That's pretty cool. Now, this is for the lane keep system. This is for hazard light. This is like stability control, and this is down, this is hill descent. As for the infotainment screen, this is an 8-inch screen powered by Sync 3. Now, over the years, Microsoft has been improving upon their sync system, and this one is the best. In terms of responsiveness, it's pretty responsive. There's a slight lag, just a little bit, but overall, now I do have this kind of like this screen protector here, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to navigate, but as you can see, pretty good. You do have Wi-Fi on here, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Those are standard automatic updates. So pretty easy to navigate through. On the bottom here, you can see the categories: audio, climate, phone, navigation, apps. So you get all your standard stuff. And the resolution is okay, not the highest resolution, but I could clearly see through. I could clearly see it. And if I go into reverse here, take a look, right? It's pretty good. And I like how there's big buttons here, so really easy to understand. It's not too cluttered. Some of the other systems, there's a lot of little apps and buttons everywhere, and sometimes there's just too much information going on. So I think this is actually pretty good. Now, moving over here, you got some large knobs, volume obviously, you got some presets, and then this is the tune button, and you got some buttons for forward and backwards. Over here, climate control. I will say this is a little daunting at first. There's a lot of things going on here. It actually took me a while just to find a few things. Down here you got ventilated seats, 3 stages, heated seats on both sides, fan control like so. Okay, this is heated steering wheel. This is obviously to set the temperature. You have dual zones up here and a third zone in the rear. Now, if you want to enable it for rear, you have to turn that on. But, you know, this is pretty standard. If you want a dual mode where, like so, you could adjust it separately. Now, this is interesting. This is auto climate control, but there's 3 stages, which I've never seen before. Most cars, you just do auto and it'll do its thing. But first stage, you'll see that, well, up here, auto fan high, auto fan speed limit medium, and low. So this will adjust the temperature for you, but it will set the fan to like a certain speed only, which is interesting. It's supposed to be auto, but I guess you can make it quieter by doing auto 1 instead of auto 3. I guess that's how it is. Defroster options, recirculating options, and that's pretty much it. So at first, if you look at this, pretty daunting because there's a lot of things going on, but after a while you get used to it. You have some space for your change, your engine start-stop button over here. You open this up, just a 12V outlet. You might be wondering, hey, where are the USB ports? Well, they're over here. If you open that up, you have wireless charging over here, and then you have a regular USB and USB-C port. So you do have that covered. Now, moving on over here, you do have Ford's new style rotating shift. Now moving over here, you do see this is not a traditional shifter. This is Ford's new style. It's the rotational one. So by default, park, twist to go to reverse, neutral, drive. There's also manual, and this is where if you want to start in second gear for, let's say, you know, for when it's snowing out, when it's slippery out, you can do manual. Then you could use this to go up and down. So that's how you would do it. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to navigate, right? Pretty easy to understand, although, I don't know, I just prefer the traditional shifters. Now over here, you can select 2-wheel drive high or 4-wheel drive auto, and you have some drive modes, and there's actually a lot of drive modes. So if I turn it, you'll see normal, then eco, sport, tow haul, mud ruts, sand, grass, gravel, snow, and then finally you're back to normal. So there's a lot of modes here. Now one thing that I find very interesting is when you turn right here, it goes left in the drive mode. And if you turn left here, it goes right. So I don't know why Ford does it. It goes in the opposite direction that you're turning. I found this to be in a Ford Explorer too. And I don't know what the rationale is behind that. But anyways, this is for some of your auto parking features, and this is for your parking sensors. 2 large cup holders, all right, and then the center over here, I just want to show you this is lockable. So if you guys have anything you want to put your spouse's purse or your own purse or laptops or whatever, you can lock this center armrest, and that's pretty cool. You have a large tray over here which you can remove, and take a look. It is absolutely huge. So you could put even probably a small backpack, purses, whatever you can fit in here, and there's another 12V outlet over there. Now moving on to the seats, take a look. I like these seats a lot because this is the platinum trim I mentioned, right? Take a look at these seats. Really, really sporty. There's a lot of stitching going on, and it just looks good and it feels good. I'll let you guys know how it is once I start driving, but overall the seats look really good. Now up here, going up, some HomeLink buttons, some controls for the lights, and also this huge panoramic sunroof that goes all the way in the back. So I'm a big fan of that. That is standard on this platinum trim. All right, let's go for a drive and see how this Expedition is on the roads. All right, and I am off. Well, first impression is, yes, it's very high riding. Yes, you are sitting really high up. So that means that for a lot of you guys, I am 5'10", and I can barely scoot my butt into the seats without utilizing the running boards. So if you guys are a little bit taller, you got longer legs, you'll probably have no problem getting in. But for the rest of you guys that are on the shorter side, you definitely want to utilize those power running boards, which I think is really cool. Anytime you open the doors, they slide right out, they deploy, and anytime you close the doors, they retract. I really love that feature. Now once you get in, it is a commanding view, and it's very comfortable. It's like you're looking from a 10,000 foot view, right? You're sitting way up, and it just seems like, you know what, you have a really commanding view of what's around you, your surroundings, and so forth. So in addition to the commanding view, what I'm loving right away are these seats. They're very, very comfortable. They're plush and comfortable, and you could adjust them like 100 different ways. Even in its default setting right now, I find these seats very comfortable, very, very comfortable. I really like these seats. So not only do they look great, they feel great, but they're also very comfortable. It is really quiet in here. Now that may change, it usually does once you get up to speed. The only thing I hear is the climate control right now. It is really, really quiet in here, and that's really good. Now what's great about the 2020 Expedition is across all trim levels, now Ford's Copilot 360 safety suite is now standard. So you don't have to worry about that. Everything I showed you guys before in the gauge cluster in terms of settings you could turn on or off, those are all standard now. All right, let's test out acceleration here. It got up to 60 relatively quick, and it just did it like it was nothing. So that was actually really impressive. And 400 horsepower turbocharged, the torque kicks in really quick. Those of you guys that may be thinking this is a slow SUV, it is not. As I'm coming to a stop, the brakes feel good. They're not mushy, they're pretty linear, and I like the way this feels. Because some of the other Fords I've tested, I felt like, you know what, they caught on a bit early. Not in this Expedition. I really like this brake feel. Now that I'm up to speed, I'm going about 50 miles per hour. It is still very, very quiet in here, and that's really impressive. I'm talking about it is luxury car quiet. No wind noise, no road noise. Cars passing by, I could hardly hear them. So this Expedition is really well insulated. The only thing you hear is when you put your foot down, you'll hear some exhaust noise and some engine noise. But outside of that, and that's actually a good noise, but outside of that, it is super quiet in here. So I put the Expedition in sport mode. It'll automatically change it to 4-wheel drive. And that's quite interesting, but I could definitely feel the throttle response improving. And just a little tap and this huge SUV just gets going. So as for steering, I like this steering wheel. I really like this thickness and the way it's cushioned. It just feels right. It feels like more like a sporty steering wheel. So I like the steering wheel. In terms of the steering feel itself, I feel like Ford did a good job with the weight. It's right in between. It's not heavy at all. So those of you guys that are thinking this might be hard to turn and stuff, it's not. But it has that weight to it so that it doesn't feel very light either. It doesn't feel too artificial, especially when you're making turns and stuff. It has a good weight to it. The only downside is, yes, there's a little play in the steering wheel, as you can see over here, but not too much. When I do this a lot, I actually feel a little movement. So there's some slight play. But overall, I think Ford did a good job with this steering, and I do enjoy it. Now, I feel like the shocks are really comfortable, so the suspension is still soaking up the bumps really nicely. But the only limitation to what the suspension can do is this is a body-on-frame SUV. So with that said, you go over bumps and stuff, you'll feel it just a tad more because it's essentially a body bolted to a frame. So with that said, it's a really comfortable suspension. I feel like it's soaking up the bumps really well, but when there's large potholes, when you're making, sharper turns and corners, you're going to feel more roll and you're going to feel more of the body rattle. But overall, I think this is pretty good. Visibility is great. Large windshield, large tailgate window, side windows are big, the mirrors are big, blind spot, even though you have blind spot monitoring system in here, I mean, there's no problem with blind spot back there too. So overall, visibility is just outstanding. As for the 2020 Expedition, there are 2 different styles and 4 different trim levels. In terms of style, you have the regular one, which is the one I have today, and also the Max. The Max is a stretched out version. It's 12 inches longer and the wheelbase also increases, but the trim levels stay the same. Now the base trim is the XLT, starts right under $53,000, and you get the essentials. You get a powerful 3.5 liter EcoBoost engine with a 10-speed automatic, and you also get that Sync 3 infotainment screen as well. Now moving on to the limited edition, you do have bigger wheels, 20-inch wheels, you get power running boards, and you get upgraded sound system, and everything inside is now leather trimmed. Now the King Ranch trim comes with special 22-inch wheels, it gets a 360-degree camera, special Del Rio leather trim seats, and it gets some special paint on the bumper. And finally, you have the Platinum trim, and this starts a tad under $74,000. This is the one I'm reviewing today. You get 22-inch wheels, a huge panoramic sunroof, adaptive cruise control with stop and go. You get a more powerful engine, a 400 horsepower engine, and all the other things I'm showing you today. Lastly, let's talk about the good and bad to this brand new Expedition. Starting with the good. The exterior looks, it's big, it's brawny, it's modern, and it looks great. It has a very powerful EcoBoost V6 engine. There's a lot of space in all rows and the trunk. You get a great commanding view while driving. It is very quiet and very comfortable within. And finally, the Ford Copilot 360 Safety Suite is now standard. As for the bad, there's also a few things. The second row does not power fold up, although it power folds down. The drive mode selector turns the opposite direction, which is confusing at times. A lot of the features are optional on the lower trims, and unfortunately the upper trim levels are very pricey. And finally, with 15 cup holders, there's just not enough. Alright, the last one was a joke. 15 cup holders is plenty. I'm giving the Expedition an overall score of 99, which is the best and the highest of this class. But if you want to see how it compares with its peers, then check out driversonlyrankings.com. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe to the channel, and check out these other videos.